All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast, and we're back from vacation, but not really. I don't think this was definitely not vacation. Definitely a lot going on. Switch schedules at the 9 to 5, and so it was a little tough getting back into the swing of things. Episodes are supposed to air 10 a.m. on Sundays. Well, it is Sunday, and it's more like 6:05 p.m., but anyway, we're back with another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast, and it is time for episode number 93. That is right, just 7 more episodes before we hit the 100. We hit the triple digits. I wonder what that's going to sound like. Should we preview it? Do we want to do a preview? Hey, what's going on, guys? It is time for the Chasing Waypoints podcast, episode number 100. That's right, we made it 100. Yeah, I think that's going to sound pretty good. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to change it up, change the music or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, this podcast will be brought to you by an enormous amount of caffeine because I have been up since 3:30 in the morning. And yeah. So anyway, what's going on, guys? We're counting it down. We're almost there. And that's what this episode's going to be about. We're talking Dakar 2023. This is going to be the preview show for that. Well, with as much as I can, because I finally got around to watching the Dakar preview last night with David Costera and those guys talking a little bit. It was really cool to see. I had a bunch of different teams, different people from those teams representing them, including Stefan Petterhansel, Sebastian Loeb, one of my favorites. I think did we have El Matador? Carlos Sainz, I think, was on there as well. I don't know. They mixed it up with a bunch of different people, and it was really, really cool to see. And I know they had some guys there from Audi Sport. So anyway, let's get right to the episode. Turn the party down here, and let's talk a little bit about the 2023 Dakar. So definitely seeing a ramp up in social media posts. If you haven't already, you should be following Mason Klein and doing that premium count stuff, getting some of that behind-the-scenes action. So everybody was up, and by everybody, I mean Skylar Howes and Mason Klein were out at Fox Raceway this past week for the Kurt Caselli ride out there, and that was pretty cool. I got to see some epic shots. I believe Toby Price was there as well, but definitely got to see some epic shots of those guys flying these rally bikes around and having a ball out there, which was really, really cool to see. I did get to watch the Quinn Cody bike giveaway that they gave away. That thing was badass, that Baja bike that they spec'd out. The word on the street was it was about a $30,000 race bike that they basically built up. Cody was supposed to ride it for the Baja 1000 or one of the Baja races, but didn't end up going down. So, but that ultimately was the bike that they ended up giving away, and that thing was just badass. So it was really, really cool. Somebody out of Colorado won that one, so I was excited to see that. And I'm actually going to step away from the microphone really quick because in all my preparation, I exactly left my notepad exactly 6 feet, which I cannot reach. So hang tight. In case you're wondering what that crash was, that was the Xbox controller that I just dropped on the ground. So, okay, in my best effort to, since I can't afford the Dakar and nor do I have the talents of navigation that it would take to even competitively finish the 11-kilometer the 11-kilometer prologue that they're doing this year, I have decided to opt for something a little bit different and went with the Dakar Rally game just to check it out. You know, I've heard a lot of good stuff about it, and more so that, you know, the navigation and how to navigate and the notes and the cap headings and the stuff like that. So is it the real thing? Absolutely not. But it is a video game, and it does kind of make sense. And I'll do a review, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I honestly, my initial impression, the first few stages that I've ran, pretty cool. You know, I think it was a smart buy, and it was just something to kind of get your brain used to the idea of like, okay, I'm riding, I'm enjoying this, and then all of a sudden I'm like blew right by the note, and I get confused and I get lost. And so it's very interesting so far, and that's only just a few minutes of playing. So I've not gone into the whole like coach me mode. I'm trying to just do it, you know, like 100%, no training stuff, none of that, just actually trying to apply the stuff that I do know. The limited amount of stuff I do know, because a lot of the listeners out there, you guys know way more than me on this stuff, because you've actually been out and done it a lot more. But I enjoy mingling, rubbing elbows, and doing all that stuff, and more stages coming soon. Got a lot of stuff happening. Trying to get a pretty big announcement going for episode 100. We will see how that pans out. I've actually got to do some follow-up calls this week on that, but I'm absolutely looking forward to that. But anyway, all right, back to the Dakar, because that's what we are initially talking about. So if you guys checked out the preview show already, I believe it was about 20-30 minutes long, something like that. It was pretty cool. You got to see a lot about this year's course. David Castera, of course, talking about what they designed and what they did. And I think the big thing this year, what they talked a lot about in this was this whole journey into the empty quarter. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that is going to shape up as. I will say, though, the empty quarter does have when you think of Dakar and vast dunes and just out in the middle of nowhere, that is the empty quarter. So I'll look up some details on it and share that with you guys here in a little bit. But they've got their work cut out for them this year. So a total of 14 stages plus the prologue. So really it's 15 stages. The prologue, remember guys, for those of you playing the home game, the prologue is basically like qualifying. So you're going to go out, you're going to shake the bike down, you're going to get your navigation stuff going. And the idea behind that is that helps set the starting order for stage number 1. Previous years, they had done stage 1A, stage 1B, and in the end, it really just added to the confusion. This time, they're just going with prologue. So the prologue, remember, is qualifying. So that is just getting people, getting everybody situated into some kind of a starting order for the next day. Generally does not count towards the total time for the stage. It's not really counted towards your overall time. The clock starts at 0 for stage 1. But it does give you an idea of how they're going to get started. The interesting thing is that in some of the other rallies leading up to the Dakar, some of the organizations have actually played with the prologue a little bit and working on that penalty in order to avoid that swing starting early on in the stages. So, people sandbagging the prologue to get a better or more favorable position on stage 1. So we're going to see if they're going to try and kind of dock that and kind of chop it off at the knees or however you want to say it, beat them to the punch, however, whatever, insert your favorite saying there. But the end result is we'll see what they end up doing with that. So, all right. So I got my printout. I got all the stages to give you guys just a quick rundown, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But this year's Dakar, including the prologue stage, is looking like 4,706 kilometers for those of us on this time, or what is this? I follow this guy called Fat Electrician on TikTok. He's got some pretty funny stuff about military stuff. But in freedom fractions, as he refers to them, in the U.S. system, right, not on the metric system. So 4,706 kilometers is the total distance, or 2,977. Of course, the pen cut out there. 2,977 miles is what they're going to be racing. So just shy of 3,000 race miles. But wait, there's more. So not only that, but you also have the commuting, or what we call the liaison. So for those playing the home game, remember liaisons. Liaison is the commute from the bivouac, your campsite or your pits, to the start of the stage. And then it is from the finish of the stage back to camp or back to the bivouac. And so they do this in general. It's just because it's maybe a better place to start, a better place to finish. And then that way, or it could be fuel logistics. There could be other things involved for that. And so you don't necessarily take off right from the bivouac or race right up to the bivouac. There's usually something in there, and sometimes it's front loaded. So you could have a 300 kilometer commute, or 300 kilometer liaison. And then on the back end, it's like 2 kilometers from the finish line to the bivouac. So it kind of gets split up differently. But to give you guys a sense of that and what it is. So by the end of this, they will have traveled a total of 8,549 kilometers total. That includes racing and liaisons, or roughly about 5,300 miles. So that's 5,300 miles across 15 days. So you're averaging about, what is that? About 300-ish miles or so per day. Doesn't sound like it's a lot. And some of the adventure bike riders that are maybe listening to this thinking, 300 miles a day is not necessarily too bad. But 300 miles in one day and then back it up with 2 days and then 3 days and then 4 days. These guys are going to be doing this for 15 days, basically, is what they got to do. Yeah, some of the days are shorter and some of the days are longer. But wait, there's even more. Then you go into the dunes and you go into this stuff. So on an adventure bike, some graded roads, some highway, it's fairly easy, right? Not too bad. Well, now imagine having to race through the Saudi Arabian desert, or even getting into, and this is funny because I'll get to this here in a minute, about one of the stages in particular for the 2023 Dakar is actually fairly short. But there's a reason why it's fairly short, and we'll talk about that in a sec. So anyway, all right, so 15 stages starting on the 31st with the prologue. January 1st is going to be stage 1, so we're going to be looking forward to that. It's definitely the countdown. It is coming up fairly fast, but let's talk a little bit about what these stages are this year. So first stage, or your should I say prologue, the prologue is going to be from the bivouac of Sea Camp, and it's just going to be a quick loop. It's 11 kilometers long. 11 kilometers is nothing. That is 6.8 miles of racing. So in those 6.8 miles, you got to show your navigation chops and kind of figure out where you want to get started. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see for this event. Again, and I mean 6.8 kilometers, and you're still got close to 3,000 or 6.8 miles. You're still going to have 2,970 miles to race. So, but you kind of want to start off on the right foot. So that's the whole side of it on there. So the next stage is going to be a loop stage on Sunday the 1st, from Sea Camp to Sea Camp. And that is going to be 368 kilometers long, or 228 miles, for a total of 603 kilometers. So that, remember, is going to be the stage, the 368 kilometers, plus the 600, or plus the liaison in that 603 kilometers. So what that breaks down to is 228 miles of racing with 145 miles of commute is what that is going to break down to. So fairly long day, but right up to it, 228 miles right there, day one. And from the stage, or from the show, if you guys saw it, you would have heard David Costera talking about it, that the first stage was just going to be kind of an easy going, getting the legs, going to see some, see the sights, that kind of thing, and have some fun with it. But relatively easy navigation, nothing too bad. And then from there, they're going to jump into stage 2, which is going to be from Sea Camp to Aluo. And that is stage number 2. That is 267 miles, or in kilometer, 431 kilometers of racing. 267 miles is what that means. And then a total stage, or a total day, of 590 kilometers. They're going to have about a 99-mile commute. Remember, on that liaison, those 99 miles could be broken up before or after the stage. Just depends on where they finish. Again, Costera talking about stage 2 being almost no sand, stony, narrow kind of passes and stuff like that. So the first thing I hear when I hear that is that's where most of the guys from the U.S. side of it will have a chance to put some time on some of the guys that are not as versed in the rough, rocky stuff. So namely, thinking about, Skylar House, thinking about Mason Klein, Ricky Brabeck, all of these guys that are used to racing. You got the American Rally Originals. All of those guys are used to racing over here on the Baja side of it. So they are used to a more rockier, difficult terrain, open desert kind of thing with minimal sand. So, and when we talk sand here on this side of the pond, it's different than the sand that they're talking about here in Saudi Arabia. So, we'll see how that breaks down. But again, stage 2, nothing there, but I think that's where we're going to see some of our guys jump up a little bit there. Almost forgotten. This was actually going to, if you guys have ever seen Jacob Argubright, any of his videos, if you guys follow him, if you've seen any of his videos racing some of the hare and hound stuff like that, that is like his bread and butter. I mean, he is so proficient at riding really, really fast and narrow stuff and rocky and just chopped up. That I think that stage 2 right away is going to suit him really well. So I'll be interesting to see. I would be interested to see how that shakes out. for him, because I mean it's very, very difficult to ride quickly in those kind of terrains, and to be able to do it with the ease that he does. I mean, I think that is definitely going to suit his riding style. All right, stage number 2. That was stage 2. Then we're going to do stage 3, which is Aluel to Hail. That is stage 3 is 447 kilometers, and then that's 277 miles of racing. The total day is going to be 669 kilometers, which means they're going to do about 137 mile commute back and forth. Now, interesting, and I didn't mention this, but part of that is going to be an assistance route, meaning that they're going to have the ability to, the assistance route is where they move from one bivouac to the other. So there's going to be some movement going on there for those guys. But from here, let's see, we go back. All right, so 277 miles of racing, 137 miles of commuting. That is going to be a loop there. From David Castera, challenging navigation, and they're going to see a lot of average cap. So cap now meaning other things. If you check Urban Dictionary on our latest update of the term cap, is no longer mean just a hat. But anyway, okay, so what we're talking about here, more challenging navigation and average cap. So average cap is basically saying, let's see, if you think about it, when you kind of look off into the distance and you go, it's kind of over there, and you're trying to tell somebody kind of over there, and it's kind of like, okay, well, just head for that hill. Well, average cap is kind of the same thing. So it may be that, okay, well, you're going to be on a cap heading of 267 degrees, right? So 267, you're facing 267, but the trail that you're on goes from 267 to 310 to 250 to 320. It is kind of swapping back and forth. And the idea is that you got to have an average cap rating of, 267 or whatever, whatever your cap was, or whatever the road book calls out as your average cap. So that's basically what you're just going to kind of average in that direction. Well, averaging in that direction means kind of finding your way. So you could be on the trail that's to the left. You could be on the trail that's to the right of the trail that they wanted you to be on, or the trail that they were thinking of. So you have to really watch out for that kind of stuff, because it could open up the way, or it could lead to future navigation mistakes, right? Maybe not right then and there, but you're going to have issues further down the road. So there's a few different versions of it. And from the show and what Castera was talking about, that was one of the things that they wanted: trickier navigation, harder navigation. So I don't know. I know that they've been on a mission to slow down the pace of the Dakar, slow down the top riders. And I think they're still working on doing that via the notes and making the navigation more tricky. So we'll see how that pans out for them. I think that we may see some slower speeds, especially with the amount of sand that they're going to be facing for this year's event. So that was stage 3. Stage 4 is going to be a loop stage. So a few loop stages this year. Stage 4 going to be 425 kilometers of racing, or 263 miles. Total is going to be 573 kilometers. So they're going to have 263 miles of racing, 91 miles of commuting, 91 miles of liaison for that stage. And it is going to be a loop stage around Hail. So we should see, let's see, stage notes from Castera: sandy mountains, big sandy mountains, the first 100K. And then mid-stage, it goes into open desert, and then opening up into that more faster stuff. So the guys that are proficient in sand, they're going to enjoy the first part of this stage. The guys that are fast out in open desert, they're going to enjoy the second half of the stage. So I think that is going to make an interesting mix. I'm curious to see, because again, we're talking, there's going to be more sand, but at the same time, it's already in the first couple of stages, the first few stages, we've had some stuff that will help, or not help, but favors some of the American riders. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. All right. Let's see here. And now we're stage 5. Stage 5 is another loop around Hail. It's going to be 375 kilometers total, 232 miles of racing. 375 for the stage, 375 kilometers for the stage, 232 miles of racing, 646 kilometers total, Hey guys, what's going on? Super quick break in the podcast episode. I hope you guys are enjoying. I just wanted to mention really quick, I've been using the Anchor.fm platform for all of the podcast distribution and everything, and it is very, very simple. So if you guys have been thinking about getting into your own podcast, doing your own thing, talking about your own adventures and what you've got going on your side of the planet, it is very, very simple. All you got to do is go down to your app store, whatever that may be, if it's Android or if it's on Apple. Download the Anchor app, or you can also go to anchor.fm, create an account, and get started. It is super, super simple. So anyway, with that being said, back to the episode. 68 miles of those kilometers are going to be the commuting back and forth. So still a big day, still a lot of miles to go. And as you guys can see, we've not done a stage other than the prologue that has been less than 250-ish miles, except for today, 232 miles. So a little bit of a break there, but averaging already 250 at least. Okay, stage 5, the notes from the show. I kept it simple. Sand with an exclamation point. So it sounds like this is the day where everybody that's really, really good in sand is going to have a chance to shine. And the ones that aren't so good, by the end of the stage, are probably going to be a lot better. So we'll see how that one shakes out. I mean, it is a fairly long stage. Once they hit sandy stuff like that, and it varies from dunes to different like river bottoms, things like that, I think that it may favor our guys, a little bit more, might favor the Americans a little bit more, but we'll see. The dunes are kind of the equalizer there. So, all right, we go into stage 6. Now, stage 6 is where we're going to see some of the trickery. They're going to go from Al to Al Duwadimi. I'm trying. Okay. I'm not versed in pronouncing these names. I think I should have probably looked them all up, but all right. And so that is for Friday. Stage number 6, 466 kilometers total, 288 miles of racing, 877 kilometers, including the liaison, which is going to add 254 miles to the day, right? So 288 miles of racing, 254 miles of commuting. The assistance crews are going to have to travel about 526 kilometers. If you guys want to do the quick math on that, it is 0.62. So 62 miles per 100 kilometers is the way to break that down. So for that one, let's see. That is stage number 6. Stage 6, 850 kilometers total is what they were talking about in the show. It was a little bit less than that. So, and for this one, they're going to be starting off on the plateau side of it. So they're talking about being up top, up high, some of the rough stuff, and then they're going to turn it right back around and head back into the dunes. Now, I mentioned just a second ago, this is where the trickery begins. This is what they were talking about, having 2 distinct routes for the competitors. So this is where we were talking previous shows, talking about how, that big advantage that you get by starting later on in the pack. Well, this is the first stage, and they're really the only stage they talked about it, but stage 6 already, I'm sure it was strategically done to be this early on in the event, that they're going to break up the pack and they're going to do 2 routes down the same area. And this is where we're going to see some of that Dakar swing, kind of like if the swing had already started, this is where they're going to try and stop it. And so what we're talking about when we're talking about the Dakar swing, if you guys remember from the coverage last year, is basically what happens is that the top riders will start to try and figure out, okay, if I sandbag this stage, I'm not as strong on this next stage, so I don't want to be the guy that leads out. I want to be the guy that goes behind. So in some cases that is good. In some cases that is bad. If you go into dunes, a lot of times the dunes will be marked up and you'll have a better, easier time. But then you break out of the dunes and you get into the rough and into the rocky 2-track stuff, and 2 bikes, 3, 4 bikes in front of you, you don't really notice if the tracks are really that marked up, especially if it's 2-track, if it's something where, stay on main path, where it is a commuted road or a road that gets a lot of traffic, it gets a little bit more difficult to see the tracks. So the riders up front don't lose as much time. But if you're in virgin sand dunes and you're the guy up front, you're basically drawing the line for everybody. So it makes it really hard to get away from the field. And so some of these guys, or a lot of these guys, know that, and they try and play to their advantage by sandbagging a little bit just to try and get a better or a more favorable starting position for the next day. And remember, in rally, it's the other way around. You want to be towards the back of the pack because the advantage is back there. The advantage, there really isn't necessarily an advantage to starting up front unless you're very proficient at navigating, or you know that stage you're going to be able to bury your tracks and not leave traces, right? If you're starting in hard pack rocky stuff, it's a little bit harder for people to pick out the lines. So you got to watch out for that kind of thing. So that is where they're going to try and break it up on stage 6 by doing those 2 routes. So stage 7, let's see what that breaks down into. Stage 7 is going to be another lap around Al Duadimi with 473 kilometers of that racing, which is 293 miles, 641 kilometers total for the day, which is going to tack on another 104 miles of commuting to that 293 race miles. So that is the stage for there. That is on Saturday the 7th. And on that one, Costera mentioned stage 7 was going to be an all-terrain type deal. So you're going to have everything: sand, rock, rough, all of it, open desert, going in back and forth into these different sections, which is interesting. And I should have brought it up a minute ago, but Sebastian Loeb was talking about something interesting that this year you would have an idea, like on the stages there would be neutralizations where some of the top teams were using those neutralizations to kind of get an idea from their team and where they needed to be in that. So remember, a neutralization is basically a pause in the stage. And what happens is that during that time, depending, you can have communications, you can talk, there's things that can go on in those neutralizations, but basically it's break time. Depending on the stage, the logistics, the layout, and how it works, those are going to be a little bit different. But in this case, one of the things that they were talking about is that the lack of having neutralizations now leaves that lack of communication. So it seemed like it was something that was a little bit concerned about. But once again, I think it's another way that they're trying to break up this Dakar swing by not allowing teams to share information that could be like, okay, well, you know what, I better... I'm going to leave. I'm going to happen to leave a few minutes late from this gas stop, because I don't want to be up front. Because if I'm up front, that's maybe not going to be, not going to be favorable. So I think that is definitely an interesting topic and an interesting thing. And we'll see how it plays out, because I think that this year's Dakar, with the things that they've implemented, I think we're going to have a less of a swing and a more challenging day for everybody. So, again, that was the lap around Oldimi. That is stage number 7. Stage number 8, we are going from Al Duadimi to Riyadh. So that is going to be 407 kilometers of racing, or selective stage, special stage, however you want to call it. So 407 kilometers or 252 miles of racing. And then we're going to add another 195 miles to round out the day of commuting, that for a grand total of 722 kilometers for the team. So that is going to be another assistance route. So they're going to travel 368 kilometers. So the teams will have to move to Riyadh for that bivouac. And that is on stage 8. And the important part about stage 8, it is the day before the rest day. So a little bit of a goodbye with still a long stage or a longer day, 722 kilometers there total. And then they go into Monday. That's on Sunday. So Monday, January 9th, that is the rest day in Riyadh. So rest day, basically that's, okay, we're going to give you guys the day off from racing. Why? Because by that time they would have ran 3,403 kilometers of racing, or roughly about 2,109 miles of racing. So for those of you guys on this side that are familiar with the Baja Peninsula, that's basically down and pretty much all the way back in the course of 8 days. So that is 4 days down, 4 days back. And some of the guys that listen to me that run the tours will go, yeah, 4 days, doable. Yeah. But except in here, you've got some really gnarly sand dune days mixed in and a lot of different terrain on that as well. But then not only that, but you're literally doing it every single day. So total what that looks like so far, just to get to the bivouac, just to get to the rest day, competitors would have done 5,332 kilometers totaling 3,305 miles. So that is down and back on the peninsula, and then turn right back around and head down once again. And that will be in 8 days. It's like doing the Baja Peninsula 3 times. That is definitely a challenge. So much like the Baja Peninsula, you're going to have some off-road stuff. You're going to have some on-road stuff. And this is going to be a long day. So I'm not as familiar with it over here on the inland side or state side, but I can tell you the peninsula is roughly about 1,200 miles, I believe. It's about 1,100, somewhere in there, down and back, so, or just down. So definitely going to be a challenge. A lot of work just to get to the rest day. That is pretty deep into it. That was a comment that I did hear from one of the teams that this year that it was going to be a little bit longer and you're going to have to work a little bit harder to get to the rest day. So that will be, I'm sure, much welcomed. But then right back around, they're going to get into stage 9 on Tuesday, the 10th. That is going to be from Riyadh to Hardar, which is stage number 9, 439 kilometers of racing, and that is 272 miles. Then we're going to add another 168 miles of commuting to that, or liaison, for a grand total of 710 kilometers for the day. And again, that is stage 9. So let's see. No notes on stage 9, which means it's just par for the course. They did talk about stage 8, that Al Douadimi around into Riyadh. They were talking about more sandy canyons and more of a Morocco-like terrain. So I know Jacob Argybright has been and done a rally over in Morocco. He did it on one of the rally bikes, one of the RFR bikes, so this might suit him a little better as well. But again, I mean, this is all open desert. All of these guys are versed now at this point. They've done the sand dunes, they've done the rough, they've done the rocky, they've done all of these things. So I think that it is very much their game. I don't think, with the exception of the sand dunes, which I'm not 100% on how everybody's been really getting ready for the sand dunes. I think that everybody's going to be, the entire U.S. contingent headed over there should be doing pretty good, because I think that they've broken up the terrain, at least it seems like, to be a little bit more diverse. But that kind of comes to a screeching halt as they get further down, because after that they get into stage 9. Then they get into, let's see, 9. Then they go stage 10. Let me see here. Tuesday, that is Tuesday the 10th is stage number 9. And then they go into Wednesday for stage number 10. Stage number 10 is going to be a long day. So they've got really quick. They're going to have a 3 a.m. start because of the length of the liaison. So this sounds like the liaison is front loaded for this one. What they're doing is 114 kilometers or 70 miles of racing, and then they're going to add 315 miles of commuting on that. So for a grand total of 623 kilometers for the day. Assistance route, 507 kilometers for those guys. So they're going to be on the move right there. 695, roughly, they're going to be traveling about 300 miles. So if you're in San Diego, that's like headed to Vegas for the day. Then let's see here. So 114. So yeah, really short. And from Costera, when he said that they were going to do a 3 a.m. start on stage 10, that to me tells me that liaison is definitely front loaded, and they're going to have to commute a very long way before they get to that short 70-mile stage. Again, and that is from Harada to Shaibai. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. That is, again, for stage number 10. So that was the big news there, is that a really early start. So that is going to be a long day for these guys. Probably going to be cold in the morning. That's where we're going to see all these guys in the snowsuits and maybe some heated gear. Let's see. All right, here we go. This is the fun one. This is the one that was going to be challenging. So we knew that down in there, and I mentioned it earlier, that there was going to be some shorter stages in the event, and that was one of them for stage 10. But stage 11, Shabai to the empty quarter marathon stage, 275 kilometers of racing, 170 miles is what that is. Then they're going to add on another 93 miles of commute for a grand total of 426 kilometers. Now, this is a marathon stage. So with that being a marathon stage, for those of you playing the home game, a marathon stage is very simple. So we have 6 people headed to the Dakar that are going to be racing under the Malimoto banner. Well, 5, right? We have the American Rally Originals. Let's talk about them, right? David Pearson, Jim Pearson. You have Kyle McCoy, and then you have Mo Hart, and then why am I missing somebody? Jim, Dave, Mo, Kyle. That's 4. Why am I missing number 5? Why was number 5? Paul Neff. How could I forget Paul Neff, the riding coach? He's like, that's an interesting dynamic on that team. Honestly, you have a riding coach, you got a mechanic, you got a guy that's done a shit ton of endurance stuff, and knows like is the walking history book of the Dakar. Mohar, who knows navigation and does not know how to give up, which is awesome. I mean, it's like you've got a really interesting dynamic working all together on this, and so I'm really interested to see how this is going to go for them. But everybody in the event is going to all of a sudden be a Malamoto team, like what these guys are doing. So the Malamoto category, or the Originals by Motul, is very, very simple. It is basically you are your own mechanic, masseuse, chef, secretary, everything you want to call it. Everything gets done by you as a Malamoto. So it's like you going to the track, right? On your own, not taking a pit crew, not taking it. It's very, very simple, except for the fact that you're not just turning laps, you're covering thousands of kilometers, over the course of 15 days. So it's very, very difficult. But on marathon stages, and that kind of is like a nod or a tip of the hat to the previous years or the original of how this event got started, where basically everybody was Malamoto, and that was just taking parts, taking everything. You had a very limited amount of things that you could take, and you're riding off into these far places. So now what that looks like is basically they pick a spot and they say, okay, you're going to race to this spot and you're going to stay there sequestered, and then you're going to turn around and race back. And they have limited, tires, not allowed to run. You got to basically, you run what you brung. That's all you get, right? And whatever you get to pack in on the bike or your camping gear. But usually that's really only what you can carry on the bike as far as mechanical stuff. They don't allow a lot of mechanical parts to go down into the marathon stages. So what's interesting about this, though, is that the marathon stage goes into the empty quarter. Now, the big deal about the empty quarter is sand, and lots of it, and very, very remote. So big dunes, lots of sugar sand, a lot of area, like very remote and desolate stuff. So I think that this is going to be a very challenging marathon stage for a lot of the people in this rally, even the veteran guys, the guys that have ran this forever. And it's like, if you look up pictures of the empty quarter, okay, first, just imagine a vast, desolate landscape of sand. And what you think of when you see, or what you think of when they tell you, oh, it's sand dunes. It's like that. And it's just very arid, desolate, out in the middle of nowhere. According to, and the internet never lies, Wikipedia, we're going to source Wikipedia, even though you can't do that in college. We're going to trust it for this one. So we're looking at roughly 650,000 kilometers squared of sand and dunes. 250,000, almost 251,000 square miles of just desolate arid dunes. That is the empty quarter, as they call it. So roughly it's 1,000 kilometers, 620 miles across, and 500 kilometers or 310 miles in width. So doesn't seem very wide, doesn't seem very long, but all put together, there's a lot of sand dunes to be able to navigate in there. Now, something very interesting that they did bring up in the show, or what we were watching in the preview show, is them going into the empty quarter and planning this stuff out and getting all of this reconnaissance done, and it was very, very interesting to see. And they alluded to them having some trouble having to leave a car behind because some mechanical issues and things like that. So I'm very curious to see what it's going to look like for racers, and once they get in there. Again, knowing that, what the sound or the way that the sand can change with winds, and tracks being laid down, how much of a advantage will it be to start a little bit further back, going in to the marathon stage, once you get to the midway or, once you arrive on day one of the marathon stage, is there going to be any sandbagging or anything like that coming in to get a more favorable position going out? There's a lot there. So, from the Visit Abu Dhabi website, just some interesting facts about the empty quarter. Covers around 250,000 square miles. We know about that. Let's see. Then from there, occupies more than 1/4 of Saudi Arabia's total area. One of the driest regions in the world. And then around 6,000 to 2,000 years ago, shallow lakes could be found here. So there was some water in there, but it's long gone by a few years, at least 2,000 years that it's been gone. Let's see here. And then in 1931, Bertram Thomas became the first Western explorer to cross the Rub al-Khali in 59 days, venturing across 1,300 kilometers. So in 59 days, wandered across this thing. That's crazy. So, and if you visit the abudhabi.ae website and where they talk about the empty quarter, they've got some really cool resorts somewhere on the edge of this thing. But wow. Okay. So this is pretty cool. Okay. So anyway, back to it. So they're going to be in the empty quarter for basically 2 days. They're going to come out on the marathon stage. On the way back out, this is what we're talking about, right? Really short stage, 185 kilometers for stage number 12, or 114 miles of racing. 117 miles will get added onto that for the liaison or the commute. So for a total of 375 kilometers of the day. So with the empty quarter headed back to Sheba, that is going to be the second part of the marathon stage, 114 miles. And they were talking about very specifically about a 40 to 60 kilometer per hour average, which is going to be interesting for them. That is a slow day. So those 114 miles are going to be very hard fought for. The one thing that was mentioned, and I think was interesting about them they were talking about doing the marathon stage in the sand and having so much sand involved in the marathon stage, is tire management. So in years past, we've saw it, right? Toby Price doing the bush mechanic thing with a ripped tire, having to zip tie, duct tape, and everything else he could find to get this thing to hold onto the bike. We're not going to see that as much. We're going to see more, if anything, maybe we're going to see the melted mousses, that kind of stuff from some heat. But I don't know that they're going to be generating that much heat anyway, even in the sand. So I think there's going to be interesting side of this for sure. With tire management not being a thing. So that means that coming back out, as soon as it opens up where they can get traction, everybody's going to have a crisp tire to be able to work on it. So, roached anything else? I don't know. I'm thinking maintenance is going to be important going in, making sure that thing, your air filter and everything is ready for that amount of sand. And chains and anything else that you can think of, I think is going to be the big deal. That's an interesting one. I'm going to reach out to that. I'm interested now in this chain thing. How often do they change the chain on a Dakar bike? Is it going out with fresh chain and sprockets every 2 days, or what does that look like? Let's see here. I'm going to let me see. I'm going to reach out really quick and see if we can get a response from him. I know he's super busy. Let's see here. And sorry, we're doing this totally doing this live. How often the chain and sprockets at the Dakar? Interesting. So I'll tell you guys who I reached out to in regards to that. But anyway, so the idea is I'm curious, what are the things there's probably these little maintenance things that are no, the bike does not leave unless this, and this happens before. And I'm imagining there's no way that a bike is leaving a bivouac without a fresh filter in it, so that. A lot of them you get to see how much of the bike they take apart and all that between the stages. So I'm definitely curious about that. That's one that you don't really talk about a lot. Okay, so that was the empty quarter marathon to Shibaya. That's stage number 12. Again, short day there, 114 miles of racing with another 117 miles of commuting. And then one of the last stages. So Saturday, they're going to go from Sheba to Al Hofu for stage number 13, 154 kilometers or 95 miles of racing, and then a gnarly 319-mile commute or liaison. So 95 miles of racing, then they're going to add on another 319 miles of liaison or commuting to the bivouac or from the bivouac to the start line for a grand total of 669 kilometers for the day. The assistance route, so they're going to have to travel. Those guys are going to have to travel too. They're going to be doing 552 kilometers, roughly 5 times 6, another 300 and some odd miles of transportation for that one. So that was on stage 13. Stage the thing 13, not really, just kind of an average Dakar stage. Did not really hear anything from Costera that was like, oh, that is gnarly. Let's see here. All right. And then to finish it all up is going to be the final stage of the 2023 Dakar, is going to be on January 15th, Sunday. That is Al Hufuf to Daman. That is for stage number 14. 136 kilometers of racing, or roughly 84 miles, and then they're going to add on another 172 miles to commute to the actual bivouac or finish. Excuse me, I said that wrong. That actually should be, they're going to add on another 172 miles of commuting. So remember, as we talked about previously, you don't know if it's at the beginning or at the end of the stage. We'll find out the day of. That's where I'm going to be bringing you guys the stage summaries and all that. My goal is to do it the same way I did last year, which is basically just give a quick stage rundown. I will be working and talking with the guys from the American Rally Originals. So I'll be sharing some of their progress updates and stuff like that as well on the episode. So if you guys are not already subscribed, or if you have not shared any of the episodes, those are going to be the episodes to share. If you guys got people that are watching the Dakar, or friends and families you're going to be watching the Dakar with or talking about it, tune in. I'll try and get you guys as much information as I can from the Saudi side. But that is going to be the wrap. So for the 15th, Sunday, the 15th of January, stage number 14, the goodbye stage, is going to be 84 miles long with 172 miles added on for commuting before or after, depending on that one. Stage 14, according to Costera, easy seaside stage. So nothing really standing out on that one other than just some beautiful terrain, according to him, and getting out in front. So I think that this year is going to be definitely challenging. Something they did bring up is 465 total entry or vehicles going to be participating in the event. 170 rookies. That is impressive. I'll say it again. 170 rookies, 170. 170 people that have never raced the Dakar will be racing the Dakar this year. That is crazy. And that is a huge undertaking for them to decide, hey, this is the event. The American Rally Original guys, with the exception of Kyle McCoy, first timers, and I think that is a very, very big, very, very big challenge, especially signing up for what they're signing up to do. Paul, Mo, Jim, Dave, Kyle, all of those guys, even with Kyle being a veteran now of going to the Dakar, still, there's a lot to it. And then it's a curveball, right? So they're talking longer, more race miles, longer days, a couple more days, this whole empty quarter thing, going into the empty quarter and coming out of it, all these sand dunes, all these things. I think that this is going to be a very challenging Dakar for a lot of competitors. Obviously, I mean, that's just like, I don't know, that it's like, it goes without say, but I just have a feeling that this is going to be a little bit extra for these guys. So we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a lot, I'm looking forward to covering it. I've got to kind of come up with a rhythm here because, as usual, we're asleep, they're racing, and we wake up and the day's already been decided. So I think that's going to be a tough one to do, but we will do our best and follow along with it. So let's check in on our guest. I think he's busy out training with the boys, so I'm not going to interrupt that one. But yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I think this year is going to be interesting. We got a lot of Americans headed out over there, a total of 11 for this year, which is crazy. Absolutely looking forward to seeing that one. And I think that I think we got some shots. Skylar Howes was on one of the when they were talking about it on the preview show, right? He's one of the guys to put his hat in the ring for that top podium spot, And so I think that this is going to be. I think it's going to be a good year. I think these guys are going to be good. Mason Klein, in the conversation that I had with him a couple of weeks ago, was very, very focused. He knew what he needed to do. He knew what he needed to do from the day after the Dakar and what he wanted to work on, and has been working on that. And so I think that that's going to be, I mean, if he was able to do what he did last year, what he's going to do this year, I think is going to be huge as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as well, seeing that one unfold. I'm looking forward to seeing our boys from the American Rally Originals get out in there and work together, you know, in a individual sport that you can work together in some instances. I'm looking forward to seeing those guys get out there as well and get it done and work together. You know, I want to see all 5 of those guys cross the line. I don't think there would be anything more emotional and absolutely amazing for the sport of rally here stateside than to watch all of those guys take the stage at the end. I just think that would absolutely be huge. So hoping those guys are going to have a good race and a great adventure. I think they're hoping they're going to have a good adventure and a great race. I don't know. How would you say that? I don't know. All right. Anyway. All right. That is a wrap for episode number 93 of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. I want to thank everybody that's been tuning in for that one. I'm sorry about the 2 weeks MIA. It's been a little bit rough trying to get used to the new schedule, working, you know, trying to catch up on this new role. And it's been some days, but you know what? We're having fun. So episode 93, 94 coming up soon. And then again, we are still working on a couple of other episodes, and namely that episode 100. I'm hoping we'll have some big announcement for that episode. So if you guys are tuning in, like, subscribe, share, do all of that fun stuff. And also thank you to everybody that's tuned in. I've got some interesting facts from Spotify I'll share with you guys later. Or if you have already followed me on Instagram, you would have seen those on there as well. So definitely do not forget to follow us on Instagram. Do not forget to follow us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We're on all 10 of them, including Amazon, Google, Rocket, and Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. I already said Google Podcasts. I don't know. It's like 10 different channels. So that's all thanks to Anchor. You guys have heard the ad. Got to do it. But definitely looking forward to what this next year is going to bring. So with that being said, guys, do not forget, shiny side up. And Caramel the rally dog. All right, that is the wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on... Whoa. Wait a minute. I can't do the outro yet. What are you talking about? There's no way I could do the outro. I didn't say it. And Elizabeth, I'm sure, would have wrung my neck for it, but I almost missed it. So, with that being said, guys, I hope you guys have a great week. Don't forget, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is the wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook under Chasing Waypoints, Instagram, Chasing Waypoints _official, and of course, the YouTube under Chasing Waypoints. Hope everybody has a good week. We will see you guys for the next episode. Remember, shiny side up, and don't forget to tag us. We want to see where you guys are riding and what you guys are up to. Have a great week.